You doing all right, Dan?
I'm just laying down on the floor, face down.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, can you hear me? You all right? What's going on? You got any pain anywhere? Just sit right there. Squad's gonna come look at you.
In the world of crime and justice, trust is an invaluable currency. We rely on detectives and investigators to unravel mysteries, catch the culprits, and uphold the law. But what happens when the very person we entrust with our safety and security turns out to be the criminal themselves? How does one's role as a trusted investigator become a mask for sinister intentions? Prepare to delve into a twisted tale of deception and betrayal as we uncover that Heather Bogle's friends and family finally received some justice on Wednesday.
Paramount Police, do you have an emergency?
Hi, I'll be over there in about 10 minutes to give you information about the woman that was murdered over there in Clyde.
They were in a crowded courtroom in Sandusky County, and they cried as Daniel Myers was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole for killing Heather, who was a 28-year-old single mother. Daniel Myers was sitting in his car.
He said, I was the person that took care of the white girl over in Clyde. The black man said this.
Leaning forward, and he stopped for a moment to move his fingers quickly. Then he said that he understood that by pleading guilty, he was admitting to his guilt. Before the hearing where Myers changed his plea, he sat next to his lawyers, Merle Deck and Jane Roman from Toledo, and he smiled. During the hearing, the family and friends of Heather Bogle gave short statements about how her death had affected them. Heather's cousin Pat Harger said that he worked with Myers at Whirlpool, where they both operated tow motors. Harger added that he believed God would not show mercy to Myers and that he felt sorry for Myers' family because they would have to carry his name. A victim's advocate named Carl Fairbanks read a statement on behalf of Heather Bogle's mother, Renee McLaughlin, who was also present in the courtroom along with about 50 other people. I pray for her to come back home, and to come back home safely, Fairbanks read. Only now do I understand that God brought her home to be with him, because he knew that if she survived the terrible things you did to her, she would never be the same person again. McLaughlin, through Fairbanks, expressed her wish that Heather would haunt Myers every day for the rest of his life. It makes me feel sick to know that you dared to come to her funeral, Fairbanks read. Bogle's former girlfriend, Carmela Badillo, described Myers as the scary monster hiding under your bed and said Myers should never be allowed to see daylight. I want you to know that you took away a mother, a friend, and a loved one that can never be replaced, Badillo said. You are a murderer, and you are a terrible person. Sandusky County Prosecutor Tim Braun shared some details about the case that would have been presented if Myers had gone to trial, which was supposed to start on March the 4th.
So we're on the same page of who we're talking about. Right. Heather Bogle, right? Okay. Did you know her outside of work at all?
No. I knew nothing about it. It was just very limited chit-chat. Like I said, maybe knew her maybe 3 months. Any conversation I had was when we were on break.
Did you ever know her to have friends in this trailer park?
No, like I said, I really didn't know her very well.
Okay. Did you ever see her back here?
No. I know it's a cold case and you guys are just, grasping at straws trying to figure out.
We're not necessarily grasping at straws. We've been collecting DNA buccal swabs. If that's all the same to you, we would ask you just to submit it's basically a Q-tip. Would you be all right with that?
No, I'm going to pass on that. I don't feel like I need to.
What?
I didn't really know the girl or anything like that.
Braun explained that Myers and Bogle worked together at the plant, specifically in handling materials on Line 5. When Myers was asked about Bogle, he claimed to have barely known her, but Braun revealed that Myers did know Bogle. He even donated to the family's GoFundMe account after her death, which was meant to support Bogle's daughter, and attended her funeral. A text message Bogle received from her brother was mean and hurtful, calling her names and insulting her parents when she didn't pass an exam. This message was the starting point for Myers' connection to Bogle, which later turned into an unhealthy obsession. When Danny Myers was questioned about the case, he said he comforted Bogle when she received that hurtful message. Records found on Myers' computer showed a picture of nursing textbooks indicating his interest in nursing. Bogle was severely beaten, as shown by photographs presented in court. Her face was swollen, she had 2 bullet wounds on her back, and there were bruises on her face, arms, and legs. Marks on her wrists and ankles indicated that she had been handcuffed and tied up. Braun mentioned that Bogle fought back, as evidenced by defensive wounds on her hands and DNA found beneath her fingernails. During the struggle, she managed to break one tooth and fracture another. The DNA found under the fingernails was a match to Myers, who initially refused to provide a DNA sample when asked by investigators. Sheriff Chris Hilton explained that a team of detectives and agents were able to piece together the puzzle by tracking Bogle's location on the day she was abducted using her Google email account. Her phone's location was traced to Myers' home. Bogle's phone remained at Myers' home for about an hour before being shut off. Braun mentioned that Myers had brought floorboards and a new mattress after Bogle's murder. The investigators discovered that the subflooring in his trailer had been replaced. GPS data from Myers' truck showed that he frequently drove by Bogle's home and the apartment complex where her body was found between March and April. However, after Bogle was found dead, Myers avoided her address. Braun stated that the murder was committed by Myers alone, as he could have easily walked home after dropping off Bogle's car at the apartment complex. The next month's trial for Myers was moved from October because Myers was discovered confused and unsteady inside a jail cell in Sandusky County on October the 15th. His lawyer submitted a private request to the court, and the judge restricted discussing the case. The News Messenger newspaper took legal action against the county to have the restriction lifted and to obtain the jail report about what happened to Myers, which caused the trial to be postponed. The judge eventually lifted the restriction, and the newspaper obtained the jail reports and video footage of the incident that sent Myers to the hospital.
You doing all right, Dan?
I'm just laying down on the floor, face down.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, can you hear me? You all right? What's going on? You got any pain anywhere? Just stay right there. Squad's gonna come look at you.
The specific reasons for Myers' condition leading to his hospitalization was not disclosed publicly. Myers became the main suspect in Bogle's murder after evidence linked her social media account to him. They both worked at Whirlpool and shared the same shift, with Bogle being seen leaving work at around 6:15 a.m. on April the 9th, 2015. The case was previously investigated by a former detective who named 3 suspects but did not pursue charges against them. The former detective pleaded guilty to tampering with evidence about Bogle's murder. Myers was later identified as a suspect due to new evidence, and the police searched his mobile homes, recovering potential evidence. Myers was arrested without incident and was indicated by a grand jury on multiple charges, including murder and kidnapping. The crimes were believed to be sexually motivated. Following Myers' arrest, another case involving his ex-girlfriend's death in 2009 was reopened. Her death was ruled a suicide, but the circumstances included a gunshot wound and a rifle found next to her body.
This is a story about a man named Grant Hardin. He is 50 years old and works as a police officer. However, he has a very scary secret. Grant has been caught by the police because they suspect he committed a murder. During his interrogation, they discovered that his crimes and behavior were extremely terrible. He did everything he could to try and escape from the police. Now, let's talk about what happened on February 23rd. A man named James Appleton parked his car in a parking lot on Ganridge Road to have a phone conversation with his brother-in-law. Suddenly, there was a loud banging noise heard over the phone, and the call ended abruptly. A person passing by noticed a white Chevrolet Malibu parked behind James's car. It quickly drove away after the loud noise. When the passerby went to check on James, they found him dead in the driver's seat. He had been shot in the head. The town where this happened is called Gateway, and it's a small place with only 400 people. The police soon figured out that the owner of the white Chevy was Grant Hardin, who had lived in the town his whole life. Later that night, Grant's vehicle was stopped at a police roadblock while he was returning from a dinner outing with his family. He was taken in for questioning.
Detective Chamberlain, I know we haven't met. James Chamberlain.
Okay, yeah.
Did you used to be a police officer somewhere? Or, I recognized you, but I wasn't 100% sure where I knew you from. But somebody said that you used to be a police officer at Gateway or something like that.
The detective, Chamberlain, starts questioning Grant in a relaxed way. Since they are both police officers, Chamberlain thinks they can find common ground and build trust. He hopes this will make Grant more comfortable and willing to share information. However, this approach backfires. Grant, realizing his rights have been read, decides to make things difficult for the detectives from this point forward.
I want to talk to you about what you've done today, okay? Can you just take me through when you woke up this morning to when you got stopped by the police out there in, what's the name of that road that you're on? I'm sorry, I'm going to drop Gant Ridge.
I'm not going to say anything after I've been read those rights yet.
Until now, Grant hasn't been told why he was asked to come here. He says he feels sick because of the situation he's been put in. His body language suggests that he may also feel vulnerable and not as important because he's being treated as a suspect in a case instead of being the detective, which is something new for him.
You don't want to explain what you've done today? Did you? Is there a reason behind that?
What was the first thing said? I have the right to remain silent.
Okay. So you're telling me that you don't want to talk to me right now? Okay, cool. Hang tight right here for just a few minutes, okay?
This break allows them to plan their strategy, but it also makes the suspects anxious and concerned about what might be happening. When the detectives come back into the room, they try a very different way of doing things. This time, they try to make Grant feel more comfortable by telling him that they just want to make sure he didn't do anything wrong. They assure him that once they're done, he can leave without any trouble. Most people would feel a bit more willing to share information to leave quickly. However, Grant has different plans and doesn't want to cooperate. Unfortunately, Grant is using a smart tactic during the questioning by refusing to speak. This greatly obstructs the investigation and prevents the detectives from making progress. Surprisingly, Grant's actions are legal, which is why Detective Chamberlain is visibly annoyed and decides to take a break from the interrogation. The interview has come to a complete stop, and no progress is being made in any direction. Grant, the suspect, is instructed to stay and continue the questioning. Meanwhile, the police take some time to gather more details about what happened by speaking with witnesses to place Grant at the location of the crime. It's important to note that Grant's silence during the interrogation is legal and acceptable, but it raises the detective's suspicion even more. This suspicion intensifies when Grant's wife mentions that his only alibi was that she saw him spreading grass seeds at the time when James died. All the evidence seems to point towards Grant, and Detective Chamberlain decides to question him again for the third time. During the murder, when two cars were parked next to each other, the man in the white Chevrolet greeted a person passing by. Right after that, a gunshot was fired. As they drove past, they got a good look at the driver. Unfortunately for Grant, the driver turned out to be Andrew Tillman, a fellow resident of the small town who had known Grant since he was a child. This made it clear that Grant was present at the crime scene when the gun was fired. Both Grant and Chamberlain are certain about what happened to James. However, Grant realizes that his only chance of escaping punishment is to stay silent and hope that the detectives can't find enough evidence against him. Now, the detectives are trying everything they can think of to make Grant talk. They even allowed him to see his wife and daughter, hoping it would trigger some emotional reaction and compel him to speak up. Unfortunately, even this strategy doesn't work. So instead, Detective Cordiero chooses to go back by themselves, acting in a calm and caring way and making a second try to establish trust with Grant.
All right. Get ready to think about laying down up on that desk, but it looks awful hard.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll be any more comfortable up there than what you are now.
Cordiero starts by sharing a story about how Grant supported her in a situation 3 years ago, even though he doesn't quite recall it. This story makes Grant think that Cordiero will be understanding and supportive of him because he helped her in the past. However, as expected, when Cordiero began asking him to discuss the case again, he immediately closed off and refused to answer any further questions, remaining completely silent.
Being on patrol and running into you one night. Help me out on a call back then. It was way back in, I guess almost 3 years now. I just don't understand how we got to this point.
Yeah, me neither.
You're willing to talk? Tell
I'm
me.
just ready to go to bed.
I don't blame you. Me too. Me too.
Even though Grant was reminded about his family, he still doesn't budge at all. He understands that the only way he might be released is if he stays silent and hopes that they don't discover anything incriminating.
People are gonna have questions. Your family.
Well, I have questions.
Well, exactly.
So
why can't we figure this out together?
After a long and pointless discussion, Grant finally asked for a lawyer, which meant that the detectives could no longer ask him any more questions. The interrogation ended, but the story didn't end there. Between that interrogation and the final court hearing, Grant and his lawyer realized that there was no way he would be set free without facing consequences. There was evidence that a man at the crime scene had seen Grant commit the crime. So, on October 16, 2017, Grant pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. However, during the prosecution, a shocking revelation came to light that turned Grant from a murderer into a heartless monster. When his DNA was being taken, they discovered that it was already in the system under an unknown name for a crime committed almost 20 years ago. In November 1997, a man with a gun confronted a teacher at Frank Tillery Elementary School and forced her into a bathroom stall. He assaulted her and then escaped, making sure not to leave any evidence behind, except for the DNA he left on her clothes. The local police tried their best to identify the perpetrator, but the investigation went cold after 20 months. However, 20 years later, they found that Grant Hardin's DNA was a perfect match. As a result, Grant was sentenced to 14 years for this crime, in addition to the 21 years for the murder of James Appleton. Overall, Grant Hardin was sentenced to 35 years in prison, meaning he will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. As we conclude this gripping tale, we invite you to reflect on the intricate tapestry of life and the choices we make. What would you do if you found yourself in a similar situation? How would you reconcile with the truth and seek redemption? Share your thoughts and let us continue to explore the depths of the human psyche together. Remember, it is in facing our darkest moments that we can truly find the light.